Mirasol has now firmly established itself as a fully integrated exploration and development company. Tim Heenan, our president, leads very experienced operating teams in both Chile and Argentina. The days of Mirasol generating projects for the benefit of producers are behind us. Other than a handful of legacy projects that continue to be managed by partners, such as the First Quantum Partnership at the Coronation Project in Chile, Mirasol's focus today is to discover, drill, and develop 100% controlled projects in both Chile and Argentina. There's no more effective way to build shareholder value than through discovery and development. The focus of the new Mirasol is to make economic discoveries for the immediate benefit of shareholders. Today, we will be briefing you on our two flagship assets in Chile, Sobek and the Inca Copper Gold project, both of which are slated for maiden drill programs this season. These are just two of our rich portfolio of advanced projects in Chile, where others include the Coronation Project partnered with First Quantum that I just mentioned, as well as our Gorbea and Altazor projects, both of which have compelling drill targets, but that we have not yet fully defined, so are not planning to drill immediately. But those will be subject to later briefings. Today, we will just focus on Sobek and Inca, and with that, I'll hand over to Tim.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you, Troy, for the introductions. I'll bring up the screen here so we can start the presentation. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks everybody for coming into the webinar today. We certainly appreciate your interest in Mirasol and our projects. So as always, Mirasol is 120% focused on discovery. I just put up the cautionary statement. You can review that on the website at your leisure. But just to start off, we got a very exciting 2022-2023 exploration season already underway and ahead of us. Up at Sobek Copper Gold, we have some very enticing coincident geochemical and airborne magnetic anomalies that we're following up on. We, as you've seen on our most recent press release, some multi% copper in selective grab samples at the intrusive dike at our Greenwall target at Sobek Central. Exploration is actively underway in all corners of the project at Sobek, and our focus obviously is to advance to drill stage. At Inca Copper Gold in Chile as well, we have some compelling IP geophysical targets being worked up. We have completed the geochemical sampling that includes regional prospecting around the area, as well as some detailed soil lines. We're currently refining drill targets, and we're getting ready to be drilling in Q1 of 2023. So let's start with Sobek. It's our flagship property, copper gold in, I guess we'd call it north central Chile. Typical high Andes terrain. The pictures on the right, you see in Sobek South, a more gentle terrain, but nonetheless high Andes. And in Sobek North, a little more abrupt topography, more complex geology, but these are typical high Andean projects. Obviously, Sobek is in the emerging copper, gold, and silver district, actually, up in the Mayo-Pliocene aged mineral belt of northern Chile. It's a large property package, and it's 100% owned by Mirasol. We've seen evidence to believe we have porphyry copper and high sulfidation epithermal gold and silver potential there. This was staked based on a prospective local structural architecture, as well as other geological characteristics. And obviously, it's located in the rapidly emerging and globally recognized copper gold district. We're just 7 kilometers west of Filo del Sol, where I think some of the best intersections on the planet have been coming in over the last several years. Pretty spectacular. And of course, Jose Maria is just further to the east in Argentina, and Los Helados is just up to the north on the Chilean side. We've got good access. We're only a 3-hour drive from Copiapó along about 114 kilometer stretch of paved highway. And then we take a 40 kilometer well-maintained road to get into the central part of our project. A little bit of a history going back to our 2021-2022 maiden exploration campaign. Right off the bat, we went in and did a property-wide, high-resolution, 2,700 line kilometer helicopter-supported aeromag survey. And that was completed by New Sense Geophysics out of Chile, who do a splendid job, a very well-respected group. This certainly gave us an improved understanding of the local structural architecture in our properties and in the district. It obviously defined multiple highly prospective geophysical magnetic targets. Those include mag highs, mag lows, mag lineaments, and the resultant of that, I think it gave Mirasol a significant advantage in this emerging district. Go back one slide here. Okay, just to kind of give you a visual. We're in the emerging copper gold district. So on the picture on the right, we're standing in the southwest part of the project, looking towards the northeast. Up on the border is Filo del Sol, and that straddles the Chile-Argentine border. So all the hills in the foreground here are part of Sobek Central. And the picture on the right, now we're standing up in the northwest, looking towards the southeast. You can see the prospect. This is Sobek Central, obviously, and you can see all the prospects that we've defined to date in Sobek Central. So we've got our green wall where we took off those high-grade copper samples that we reported last week. We've got the lower CLP zone. CLP is short for the collapse zone. There's a little bit of a new structure on the right-hand side, which was just found last week. It's significant, but we're not sure what it really means yet. It's a new copper oxide bearing structure, which is similar to the green wall, although much narrower. I call it a seam as opposed to a structure at the moment, but we'll see where that goes. Then we go up topography to the central breccia zone and up into the higher levels into the VN zone. The VN means vetas negras, which means black veins. And up there we have veins that are very typical of the Maricunga style veining in the Maricunga copper gold porphyries, those black and white banded magnetic rich quartz veins. And those ones, we've only got a couple samples up there, but they're carrying elevated gold. So that's certainly encouraging. Just go back one. Sorry, it's very delicate. Not sure why it's okay. It's moving on its own here. Troy, just let me see if I can take it back. Oh, my goodness. Sorry about this, guys. It's kind of got a hesitant going. Okay, I think we've got the slide we want. At Sobek Central, just to zoom in on a little bit of the most recent results on the screen on the left, you can see the green wall zone. You can see the CLP zone and the exposed central breccia zone. The green wall obviously was where we pulled off the percentage copper values off the dike. We still have to determine the exact significance of this, what it's pointing us towards, what's sourced from, where it's coming from, but it's certainly a pretty spectacular set of results there. And just to the south, you have the CLP zone, and it's defined by some pretty reasonable moly rock chip samples, as well as a coincidence gold and copper soil anomaly that we've pulled off our soil grid. And if we move a little up topography and to the southeast, we get into our central breccia zone. And that's really interesting here is because we got a multi-element coincident polymetallic soil grid-based anomaly. All the elements are localized over the central breccia area, and we have pretty strong coincident anomalies in gold and silver and lead and copper and zinc. So I think that's pretty encouraging that you've got all those elements all stacked up one on top of each other on top of that outcropping central breccia zone. And you can see in the bottom here, it's about 1,700 meters upslope to get to the VN zone. A couple pictures on the right-hand side. This is kind of typical mineralization at the green wall zone, high-grade copper. Petrology here is produced a list of copper minerals, pretty impressive, including white and black chalcocite and covalite, and bornite, chalcopyrite, chrysocolla, malachite. So it's a pretty spectacular mineralized structure. On the bottom here, this picture is from the edges of the collapse zone. Now, what it is a very intensely stocked, worked volcanic with gypsum and probably anhydrite, and that may suggest that we're just on the cupola of a bulge system that's collapsed back on itself, and then later from the volatile is filled in the fractures with gypsum and anhydrite, and that's a pretty good indication actually for these systems. So we're potentially right up on the top on that particular zone. You probably saw this in the press release last week, but just showing the results from the green wall zone. Lots of samples over 10% copper. As I said, the mineralogy is pretty spectacular and lots of different copper species. Molly's here and there with background lead and zinc, but nonetheless a good mineralogy. And if we go down to the CLP zone, it's probably exponentially less impressive, but nonetheless, I think as is important. We've got anomalous copper throughout that whole zone, anomalous moly, which is important, and background anomalous lead and zinc. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good geochemical response for where we are or where we think we are in the system for that particular target. Slowly wants to turn here. I think it's turning. There we go. At central, Sobek Central. Go back. This is not, there we are. Okay, we're looking at Sobek Central and Sobek North on the screen. Now, what these are is stream sediment anomalies. So we've done a regional stream sediment sampling campaign on all three blocks. We still need to do quite a bit more on Sobek South, but we do have a lot of samples on both Central and North. And you can see here, these are actually BLEG samples, and BLEG means bulk leach extractable gold. And you usually analyze on that analysis procedure for copper, gold, and silver. And then you have a backup of -80 mesh, which gives you your 36 element package on ICP. But the BLEG here is showing a good anomaly in the southwest part of Sobek North, and that's strong in copper and both silver. Down at Sobek Central, you see the copper. There's a very strong anomaly coming out of the main drainage, which drains the entire Sobek Central area. A really good anomaly in gold and also with silver. So the regional stream sediment sampling program has given us a numerous amount of targets to follow up regionally, and as we speak, we're currently out there following those targets up, as well as doing more detailed work here on Sobek Central. So working up towards the drill campaign and the exploration we're currently doing. Obviously, the exploration has commenced. We've been up there for a couple of months now at Sobek. We got all the surface access agreements in place. We set up the camp at a low elevation because this is a high elevation project. It's over 3,500 meters, over 4,000 meters. But we got the camp down at 2,100 meters. That means the exploration crews can get a good night's sleep at night because it's no fun sleeping at 4,000 meters. And they got to drive up about 40 minutes to get into the center of the project. So the crews at this moment are actively exploring the project. The activities planned at the moment are obviously continue with the sampling, more rock chip sampling, continue on with the stream sediment campaign throughout the entire project, and expand the soil grid at Sobek Central in all directions so we can close off or expand that geochemical soil anomaly. Mapping activities obviously on a regional scale through the three blocks and obviously on a detailed scale as well at Sobek Central. We're doing detailed geophysics, probably starting out with gradient array, following up on the anomalies with pole dipole at Sobek Central. And we're going to push a road into the guts of Sobek Central, and that's going to obviously help us mobilize the geophysical crews, get up higher with the soil sampling crews, and also help to get the drill rigs in next year when it's time to go. Okay, at Inca, another flagship property, copper gold in north central Chile, not too far north of Sobek, actually. Couple of pictures on the right hand side. It's a Paleocene environment. The topography is different than you see up in the Myo-Pliocene. You've got these wide covered depressions. So a lot of your targets are actually conceptual and underneath, whilst others are fully outcropping in the valleys. So new targets have been identified at Inca. I said it's in the Paleocene belt of northern Chile, a little older rocks. It's a large property portfolio, over 16,000 hectares. And this is actually an earn-in agreement that we have with Newmont. Now, earn-ins is something we don't generally do at Mirasol, but this was such a spectacular opportunity that was offered up to us. We jumped onto it, and here we are today. So I think within the Inca Gold project area, there's certainly, we're seeing potential for porphyry coppers and IOCGs and high sulfidation epithermal gold. These are low elevation projects, generally less than 3,000 meters. So that gives you year-round access. There's lots of mature, close by infrastructure. And this is a well-endowed, world-class copper district. Up here in the north, you see the El Salvador Potrerillos district. Off to the southwest, the Inca Gold, Codelco's porphyry. Over here directly west is Santo Domingo, which Capstone is currently putting into production. So it's a very active and historical area. A little bit of history here at Vanya. As I said, Newmont did most of the early work on the project before Mirasol came in. And what they showed us when we came in, they did a large grid of ground mag work. And the result of that was quite interesting. You've got this large magnetic depletion, which is in blue here. And sometimes that can point towards alteration, mineralization. And it was nicely cradled between these two structures. So it had a nice structural setting as well. And Newmont went in and did some DSG lines across that anomaly. Now, DSG means deep sensing geochemistry. Now, that's a proprietary system that Newmont uses. And in this case, it appears to be working very well because they got a very strong gold anomaly, also cradled within those structures and coincident with the mag low. And it had a nice annular pathfinder halo as well. So, it was setting up pretty nice to look like a strong target. I said, if I can go in here and put some electrical geophysical lines underneath of all of this, and I can find something to light up, it's going to be a pretty strong drill target. So I did just that. Let's go back a slide here. There we are. This is just so sensitive, Roy. Troy, I'm not sure what's going on, but we'll get through it. So this is Vanya North. We think it's drill ready. As I said, I'll show you that we did some more soil lines, so that information is still forthcoming, but we've got some pretty good information. So if you look here, what the geophysicist has done, he's overlain that nice elongate northeast trending magnetic depletion zone and sits over top of the geochemical anomaly. And then we did our geophysics in the third dimension below that. So the geophysicist is seeing things that he thinks are looking like potential diatremes that are in that nice setting. The resistivity in these sections may suggest silicified bodies, and they're flanked by these zones of conductive alteration. And it looks more like a high sulfidation target signature than anything else at the moment. If you go across to the next line as well, these targets continue to fall into place. We're seeing maybe what are plutonic, maybe representing gold porphyry pluton targets. They show good potential pyritic halos on both sides, both extremes. Here's the potential pyritic halo down here as well. So you've got these, the diatreme target is associated here with a low chargeability response, a bit of a bay in the response. And up here you can see the little plume coming up. So those just look like good strong geophysical targets. It's associated with the surface geochem anomaly, and it's flanked by good conductive alterations. So, you know, those in itself, we've got all those layers now, magnetics, geophysics, geochemistry, developing really strong drill targets at Vanya North. So, you know, I think we're drill ready at Vanya North. In Vanya South, that's an interesting story. Now, what we did, we took the Newmont original ground mag data and we reprocessed it, and lo and behold, there was a really discrete, strong magnetic body that emerged in the south here. You can see up here, the magnetic source is surrounded by these nice smooth textures, and that is a good characteristic of these high mag responses. The geophysicists like that. I saw things elsewhere in Chile that are very similar. And down here on these low field intensities, these blue shaded zones surrounding the deep magnetic source, they could potentially be related to magnetic depletion. Now, magnetic depletion can translate into alteration and translate into mineralization. So, you know, forming a good target. Click on to the next one here. If it stays, okay, just kind of seeing where we are today then at Vanya, both at Vanya North and Vanya South. Just a quick review of Vanya North. First off, we had the Newmont geochemical anomaly. These are the GSG lines that the Newmont did historically. We came in and did these geophysical lines, which we got good responses, which you just saw. And I've come back and tightened up these DSG soil chemistry lines. Those results are pending, and hopefully we have them in the near future, so that can even tighten up more of the drill targets at Vanya North. Down here at Vanya South, now we're not very far south. We're only 4 kilometers between the two targets, which is pretty good. You got two spectacular targets in close proximity, which I think is a real bonus. So here we came down and we did put the geophysical lines in over the magnetic source, centered over the magnetic source, and extending out to both the west and the east. We've done prospecting out here as well. Newmont had some good results out here. We came in, followed up, found some more stuff, found some pretty phenomenal outcropping copper mineralization, and we're waiting for results there. So that was really encouraging. And we've also put in DSG lines from the magnetic source out to the east. Those results are obviously still pending as well. And I thought I'd just slip this little insert in. Here's our magnetic source. Here's our IP grid. All these little white stars are area of elevated interest for us. And coincident with that is this chargeability anomaly. So these areas of interest are all directly underlain by a chargeability anomaly. And one of the better samples out there as well sits right on top of one of the strongest chargeability responses on that line. So, you know, lots of good geochemical, geological, and geophysical information to make these two solid drill targets for the new year. Let's see if I can move on. Okay, we're just going to quickly run through the geophysics that we did on the south, and all 3 lines are very similar, so I can just explain one line and then just kind of roll you through the other lines, and you can see the similarities. What's really notorious here is the western part of the line is very different than the eastern part of the line. There may actually be a block faulting episode in here which has moved these blocks up and down, but basically on the west side we're getting a lot of structural complexity. These could represent veins or faults or dikes or a combination of all 3. It's very common in this area, Inca del Oro, that there is mineralization associated with the margins of dikes. So that may be what it's mapping out. We'll see. Time will tell. And then on the east part of the line, we're getting these layered resistivity and actually chargeability layers. Up on the top here, the geophysicist is seeing something he may relate to maybe leaching, the leach cap of a buried porphyry. This circle here represents our magnetic source, our red magnetic source. This one here sits approximately there. You come across to the chargeability, and you're seeing you've got you know, this subhorizontal zoning features in both the resistivity and the chargeability, which is an interesting feature and common in a lot of the Chilean porphyries. And then you've got increased chargeability outside of the area of magnetic depletion. So what we'll do, we'll just kind of run through line 1,100 down to 800 and down to 500. So you're looking at a 600-meter swath here from the southernmost line to the north. So I just want to show you as we move through, we're maintaining the same responses for the most part. The chargeability is hanging in. These structural complexities and vertical structures are still being mapped out as we move further to the south. And if we go right down to line 500, if it'll come up for me, we'll get there. Here we are. That was actually the next line. Okay, here we are, line 500. As you see, the chargeability is still alive and well, and it increases outside, both to the east and to the west. So, those are all very intriguing geophysical anomalies that are turning into quality drill targets. We're waiting for the surface rock chip and soil geochem to tighten those targets up. This is a bit of an extra because I actually bought a new receiver in Chile and I wanted to test it out. So I said, where's the best place to test it? Well, let's test it and compare it to the Quantec geophysical lines that were done at Vanya, and we'll do this in-house. This system, we did it on 50-meter dipoles, so it only sees to about 200 meters, whereas the previous lines were seeing down to 400 and 500 meters. But the shallow mapping of the surface, really intriguing. You can see here it's mapping out in the resistivity. These structures are, actually daylighting. Looks like they're daylighting on surface. Continue to depth and are getting stronger at depth. This one here I really like because it comes up, breaks through the low resistivities, comes down into a really strong resistive body. And if you look down on the chargeability, it's a coincident resistivity and chargeability anomaly. So, those things together make strong geophysical targets, and they're going to be backed up, as I said, by the surface geochem. As you remember, we had a bunch of surface mineralization out here, so that chargeability underlies those surface geochemical results. See if we can get it moving again. There we are. So, just so sensitive. Sorry about this, everybody. 2022-2023 exploration and upcoming drill campaign at Inca. Exploration completed to date. We've got the detailed IP geophysical surveys complete. We've done the soil DSG, which is a deep sensing geochemistry, and rock chip sampling has been completed. Those results are currently pending. And of course, we've been following up surface anomalies as they come in. Exploration plans moving forward at Inca. Obviously, we want to integrate the results from the sampling that's coming in. We want to go back and follow up on the new anomalies that will be developed from the recent geochem. We're going to put that all together with the geophysics and prioritize our drill targets. And we want to be in here drilling in early in Q1 2023. Now, this picture is interesting because you can see the hills. This is the far east. We're out of the colluvium. We're up on the hills to the east. A lot of rubble on the hills, but the odd time you get these nice windows that you can actually see the bedrock. And this particular outcrop, which is underlain by our chargeability anomaly, was a very intensely stockworked, fractured up, copper mineralized stockwork zone, really. You can see the samples collected across that outcrop. So, there was pretty high density there, 3 to 5 veinlets and fractures every meter. So that was looking really good. And it's only a small exposure. So, there's still lots to do as far as surface geology, but I think we've certainly got enough to move into our first maiden drill campaign here at Inca in the early part of next year. Now, so just a portfolio review here at Mirasol. We've just talked about the 2 Mirasol funded projects, which are obviously Inca and particularly Vanya at Inca, and also Sobek. At the current time, we do have 4 partner funded projects underway between options and joint ventures. Patrick did mention that we had First Quantum up at our Coronation project in northern Chile. We have Patagonia Gold down at one of our epithermal projects in Santa Cruz, and that's our Homanaki project. Just north of Inca, at our Ruby project, we have Mine Discovery Fund. And again, down in Santa Cruz at our Virginia project, we have Silver Sands working with us. And apart from that, you know, and it's always with Mirasol, and Patrick did allude to that, that we have a very strong pipeline of early, mid, and actually some advanced projects now in the pipeline. So there's the depth of the portfolio here at Mirasol, in my view, is certainly impressive. So there's lots more than we've just seen on the screen today. So we'll have some upcoming catalysts very soon, and obviously those will include the soil sampling and recent rock chip sampling at our Inca project. And then, of course, the big catalyst will be the drilling results from our Q1 maiden drilling campaign at Inca, and hopefully the first part of Q1 next year. And then, of course, we'll be awaiting the sampling results from all the work that's currently being done at Sobek. And that'll include the geochemistry, obviously the rocks and the stream sediments and the soil grid, as well as the detailed geophysical results that will be starting to flow out of Sobek Central. And we're hoping to get in and do our first maiden campaign at Sobek late Q1, early Q2 of 2023. So, you know, those two projects together are going to certainly keep us busy in the first part of next year. And, you know, just to stress, Mirasol is focused on making the next discovery, whether it's in Chile or whether it's in Argentina, or hopefully in both countries. And we're doing this by defining and drill testing multiple quality exploration projects. And we do that through either self-funded or partner-funded exploration. So there's lots on the go. I hope everybody stays tuned. There's going to be a lot of what I think will be positive news flow coming out in the next months, and I certainly feel that it's a very exciting moment in time for Mirasol. Troy, I've probably overdone my welcome, so hopefully we do have time for a few questions. So maybe we can move on to that section.
Yeah, thank you, Tim and Patrick. I'm just going to open now the line for any questions. Just feel free to unmute your line or type any questions into the chat box, and I'll read them out to Tim and Patrick. So I'll let that have a chance now if anyone has any questions.
Please don't be afraid to ask.
George, yeah, go ahead. We can't quite hear you.
Troy, can you hear George?
I can't almost. George, sorry. Can you hear him, Tim?
I can't hear anything, no, unfortunately.
Okay. George, if you could just repeat yourself a bit louder, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could provide some background on how Sobek was acquired, especially what correlation there was with the activity at Filo del Sol over the years.
Okay, yeah, I can translate that, or I can transfer that. I'm not sure if you heard Tim, but he just wanted some background information on how Sobek was acquired and how that related to the activity in the area, particularly with Filo.
Okay, well, actually, we did stake our initial ground holding in Sobek prior to the flurry at Filo del Sol over the last couple of years. We staked this back in 2016. So Filo del Sol did exist, and obviously Jose Maria and Los Helados, but it was nowhere the fury it is today. We staked that strictly on the structural architecture of that area, particularly with that nice northwest structure coming in from Argentina, crossing the Andes into Chile. That environment, you know, if you look at most of the big giant ore deposits in Chile, they're along those big northwesters. Obviously, up in the Myo-Pliocene terrain, which is very prospective, there was good alteration in the area with Aster image processing. So it was staked as part of our regional generation programs in-house in Mirasol. And we've built on that property portfolio since the initial staking. We've moved from 6 to 8, now over 11,000 hectares in the Sobek camp.
George, I think I heard what you said. You're asking who else is in the area or active in the area now, and who's entered the area.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's obviously become a very active area. Big companies up there at the moment are Barracks in there, Rio Tinto's in their valleys in there. There's smaller companies, Frontero de Oro, obviously NGX and their partner companies have a big holding in there as well. Sokimich has got a big block of ground. Codelco, we're kind of bordered to the west by both Sokimich and Codelco, large Chilean companies. So it's become a very active area over the last couple of years. And apparently there's a line up at the door at the moment to get in. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else with any other questions. I'll just give it 1 second to see if anyone wants to join in. I think that's it. So I just want to say thank you everyone for joining the call today. If you have any follow-up questions or if you'd like to discuss anything at all that came up today or any of our other projects, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call at any time. Patrick, I don't know.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Very good and good questions by George. And this will be up on the website. So if it generates more questions after you look at it, feel free to reach out. We're here to answer your questions.